Belly up to the bar. Let's talk about safety in downtown Denver, especially when the bars get out.
We're just trying to make sure that this is the safest place that it can be.
Public radio stations in Colorado are now leading the national pushback to President Trump's defunding threat. A teacher gets the call from the Hall of Fame.
Oh boy, I was shocked.
And election rigging claims are going on trial in Denver next week. And I think I know why no one's talking about it. That's tonight on Next. Denver's bar scene is usually a nocturnal habitat. But there were early risers today in LoDo as bar owners offered ideas on how the city might spend hundreds of millions of dollars to keep that part of town safe. Here's Mark Salinger.
Welcome to the first edition of Behind the Bar.
Trading a bar for a ballroom. A new space brought people in LoDo together today.
Because we're just trying to make sure that this is the safest place that it can be.
A room full of bar owners came for a first-of-its-kind meeting to work together on making downtown Denver stronger and safer. Hasna Safi works for a hospitality group that oversees several LoDo bars.
Security has always been a challenge. As a small business, we spend about $10,000 a week on internal security.
As Denver wraps up a $175 million construction project on the 16th Street Mall and launches campaigns to try and get people to come back to downtown, safety has always been a top concern, even as crime numbers show the area is already far safer than it used to be.
When we all work together for a common goal, I think the outcome can be a safer, more sustainable environment for everyone.
Commander Kimberly Bowser leads DPD's new downtown police force. Even with more officers patrolling the area, she's asking bar owners what they want to see. Everything from more lights in parking lots to more parking and longer operating hours.
We hope to build those relationships. We hope to provide some tools.
Making sure that the private businesses downtown are aware of the investment that we've made and are able to get to all the resources they need quickly. This is the reason we're doing this today.
Councilmember Chris Hines knows several shootings in the area over recent years have caused concerns about safety, including one on Market Street earlier this month.
The violence that does happen in downtown mostly happens at 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Friday or Saturday night. It's a big rush of folks, most of them not from Denver, who come in for a night in the town and drink too much and get into fights.
Mayor Mike Johnston says fixing those problems starts here with a conversation with the people who deal with it every day.
So I think that's why we're here as a collective trying to figure out what everyone could do.
Denver bars close at 2 a.m. right now. There's a theory out there that if they stayed open later until 4 a.m., for example, like many other cities, that would make people leave at scattered times throughout the night instead of everybody leaving all at once. That would take a state law to change, though. We're told that the mayor told bar owners today that they're open to trying to work with state lawmakers to change that, make it so that everybody goes home at 4 instead of 2.
Yeah, stagger the staggering out, so to speak.
There would be a lot of staggering on the street, yeah.
So there are people on the internet that get very mad when we point out where crime stats are now in Denver, but the worst crimes in the city are down year over year.
Yeah, there's no denying that there are shootings in LoDo. That happens, but it also happens in any other major city. Homicides, for example, in that part of downtown are down 50%, more than 50% this year compared to last year. So this is trying to build off of that, the good work that's already been going on, trying to talk to people in the community and say, how can we do better?
All right, Mark Salinger, thank you. The anti-vax activist who is now America's health secretary is rolling back vaccine recommendations as expected. In fact, it's such a predictable move that Colorado has been preparing to protect vaccine access.
As of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule.
Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s abrupt announcement today leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Colorado does not currently require school-age children to get the COVID-19 vaccine, but there are public health experts who worry that insurance companies are now going to stop covering the vaccine for women and children who choose to be vaccinated. It's also unclear how Kennedy made the decision to stop recommending the COVID-19 vaccine for pregnant women and healthy children because the CDC advisory panel in charge of the federal vaccine schedule has not met to vote on these new requirements. The Colorado Board of Health that traditionally looks to that advisory board to set vaccine requirements for school-age children. After Kennedy's appointment as health secretary, Democrats in the state legislature gave that health board increased guidance that they can now include advice from major medical groups like the American Academy of Pediatrics.
We wanted to make sure that we were taking the politics out of it as much as we could, and make sure that we were that when we were looking at the schedule and the vaccine schedule here in Colorado, that we were truly looking at the science and not letting pseudoscience or like I said, politics come into play.
That said, there is a divide among Democrats in Colorado, elected ones, on vaccines, specifically vaccine mandates. Governor Jared Polis cheered RFK Jr.'s nomination for Health and Human Services Secretary, praised him for helping, quote, defeat vaccine mandates in Colorado. 3 public radio stations in our state are joining NPR to sue the Trump administration over a defunding threat. President Trump has been clear. He wants those media outlets defunded because he does not like their journalism critical of him. The radio stations actually quoted the late conservative Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia in their lawsuit, saying that Trump is not trying to hide his intentions here. No wolf in sheep's clothing. They wrote, as Scalia did, this wolf comes as a wolf. Our Angeline McCall has the latest.
Critics call it gripping and
Public broadcasters do their jobs thanks in part to the federal funds their stations receive, funds that have been cut.
We hear from our listeners all the time how important we are to them, and we're not gonna go down without a fight. We're not going down at all. But
we spoke with Tammy Graham at KSUT Radio in Southwest Colorado when those cuts were announced earlier this month under the Trump administration. She expected her budget to be reduced by 19%.
You know, there's so much happening right now. People need to be informed now more than ever.
KSUT is one of 3 Colorado public broadcasters named in a lawsuit along with CPR and Aspen Public Radio, along with NPR. The lawsuit claims the president's order to cut funding aims to punish over content the president dislikes. The lawsuit also says this is textbook retaliation by directing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to stop funding NPR and PBS, as well as their affiliates. The impact means a hit for the Colorado stations, who receive anywhere between $210,000 to $1.4 million. For CPR, that means more than 6% of their budget.
The attorney representing the 3 Colorado radio stations told me today on the phone that the 3 chosen really represent the landscape of public media across the country, with one serving tribal communities, another in rural Colorado, and the third for a more urban audience.
You know, that's what jumped out to me when I saw it this morning, Angelina. I was like, geez, I wonder why Colorado is the test case for this. But when you talk about the diversity of communities served by public media, from tribal lands in southwest Colorado to very well-off community in Aspen to the entire Front Range with CPR, it really does show the breadth.
Yeah, I think it's a nice flavor, right? And so they kind of represent what people listen to across the country, and you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so, you know, really it's a test case, because if these local affiliates can stand alone, then there's a case, right, for all the others to follow.
All right, Angeline McCall, thank you. The most important trial ever begins in Denver next week. If that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration or perhaps a completely wackadoodle claim, you should know that it's coming from my pillow guy and election denier Mike Lindell. Now, in fairness to Lindell, I am sure that it is the most important trial ever to him, because he is the one who is going to be on trial, accused of defamation for saying that Denver-based Dominion voting systems and one particular Coloradan rigged the 2020 election against Donald Trump. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. So if Lindell can come to court and prove that he was telling the truth about election rigging, he's in the clear. I actually think that this upcoming trial deserves more attention than it's getting, because this is the chance for election deniers to provide their proof of the alleged conspiracy, the one that the most powerful man in the world, President of the United States, will not stop talking about even now that he's back in the White House. But I think I know why this upcoming trial in Denver is largely being ignored. Let's start with the media. It seems like a lot of national journalists are just tired of covering Trump's election rigging lies. They're now 5 years old. I also believe that a number of Colorado's local journalists are skittish about covering political extremism. It draws accusations of bias and threats of violence. And if we're being totally honest, it's a lot more complicated to cover than much of what ends up on the evening news. Now let's talk about the general public. I think a lot of Democrats are hesitant to talk about Mike Lindell's election rigging claims because they don't want to give fuel to theories that erode faith in our elections. I think a lot of Republicans are hesitant to talk about this too, because while you see a bunch of Republicans nod along in agreement with Trump's election rigging claims, when people have to explain exactly how the elections are rigged, that's when folks start to sound goofy. Like the swirl of claims that Dominion is rigging the vote with help from Antifa or Venezuela or George Soros. The people pushing those theories for years have always said they want their day in court. Well, they're going to get it in Denver starting next week.
Another day in May, another round of thunderstorms. And we started off with that dense fog this morning, but the sun came out, allowing temperatures to warm into the 70s, and that has destabilized the atmosphere. We've got more rain showers coming off the foothills. It has been an active afternoon of severe weather with a tornado warning in Weld County for a weak little storm that dropped a small tornado over an open field, and this near the town of Raymer. And this is in Morgan County and Weld County, where we're also getting reports of hail and heavy rain. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue in El Paso County as well as Lincoln County. These storms have the potential for golf ball size hail. Only gentle showers crossing into the Denver area, and we'll continue to see this over the next 2 to 3 hours before skies clear. We get a little more patchy fog overnight, and then we do this all over again tomorrow. Temperatures in the mid 60s now will drop 10 degrees overnight. Tomorrow temperatures will stay in the 60s with a good chance of showers and thunderstorms. We're a little bit drier on Thursday, finally a break Friday. We've got sunshine and 80s for both days over the coming weekend.
Naloxone enables one thing and one thing only. Naloxone enables survival.
Denver police are now handing out life-saving opioid reversal medication. No questions asked. And a Hall of Fame induction, not for some athlete, not for some rock star, for a teacher. That's next. For the past year, Denver police have been carrying naloxone, people know it as Narcan, the drug that allows them to treat opioid overdoses while they're out on patrol. Now DPD is expanding that program, putting in naloxone vending machines outside several precinct buildings. That means that anybody can just walk up and get that life-saving medication for free. The vending machines will hold up to 75 naloxone kits apiece. They'll be available open 24/7. They'll be posted outside the police stations on Holly, Washington, and Cherokee Streets. Those are all neighborhoods with relatively high numbers of overdoses. Today, we heard from advocates who said that the kits are a cost-effective public health tool.
And I think from a public health perspective, there is nothing more effective than $25 to save a life. Comparing naloxone as something that enables is the same thing as enabling an AED as something that enables heart attacks, or an EpiPen as something that enables people to have allergies. These are all rescue medications and rescue interventions, not enabling ones.
This program funding comes from the massive opioid settlement payouts the state's getting from pharmaceutical companies. There are other municipalities wrestling with how to best use these funds. Last week, Aurora City Council, some of them were skeptical of the idea of publicly accessible naloxone dispensers rather than just giving first responders like police officers and firefighters naloxone so they can administer it directly.
I just want to make sure we're not promoting any sort of, safe injection sites. And for me, that kind of teeters on that.
Aurora is set to get more than $3 million in opioid settlement funds over the next several years. Council members said they want more details on these vending machines, that concept, before they're ready to proceed. Boy, if you think you've ever had a rough dispute over a fence with a neighbor, a rancher in the San Luis Valley put up a fence so disruptive to the community, it prompted a change in state law. The governor just signed off on that today. This new law requires people to get government approval for large, continuous fences on Sangre de Cristo land grant properties. If you're thinking, boy, that feels awfully specific, Yeah, it is. It's about this fencing in particular, a direct response to the fencing installed around a billionaire's 80,000-acre property outside Alamosa. People nearby say the fence, which is more than 8 feet tall, 20 miles long, is bad for wildlife, that it's contributing to erosion, that it cuts off legally protected access for people nearby who are allowed to have their cattle graze on that land. State legislators say this new application process, super specific, gives local governments the power to limit development. Governments down there can also opt out of that law. So, teachers are like anybody else, right? There are very highly skilled teachers, there are not so skilled teachers, and once in a while you will run into a Hall of Fame educator. We will meet one together next. Hall of Fame recognition isn't just for athletes. There is a middle school teacher in Thornton now being honored with the best in America. Byron Reed has her story.
Let's get everybody in your team.
Teaching takes dedication.
In the past, I've taught technology, historic preservation, electives, you name it.
It's part of the job Michelle Pearson loves.
For me, it's connecting to my students. It's building relationships. It's understanding who they are, what they're passionate about. So we're talking about the Reconstruction era right now.
Pearson is a social studies teacher at Century Middle School in Thornton, where she's making some history of her own.
I was extremely humbled and blessed to find out that I was inducted into the National Teachers Hall of Fame. It's a very special piece.
She's one of 5 teachers to be picked.
Oh boy, I was shocked.
It's an honor that comes with responsibility.
We're going to ensure that those who aren't heard are heard. Those who need to know that they are important and that their educational setting is important, we're going to make that happen. Around who's doing what here?
The honorees were selected from private, public, and parochial schools from across the country. The nominees must have at least 20 years of full-time classroom teaching experience and go through a selection process that includes essays, recommendations, and interviews.
My first real thought was, my gosh, I can't believe this, because for me, I've never been one that has looked for this type of recognition.
Pearson has been teaching for more than 30 years. She believes her loyalty comes from commitment to her students.
She's such an amazing teacher, and she's helped me through a lot of things. Not even like schoolwork, just like how to be a better person and stuff, and like she just like tells us more than just work.
So now what do you have to do? What's the question?
It's an honor Pearson says she's humbled to receive.
Yes, I actually am. I'm really excited.
After devoting more than 3 decades to her passion.
It truly is, especially when you lift up others so that they feel valued and they feel part of a community, then you've reached your goal. And that's what education's about.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
Michelle Pearson, Hall of Famer. Marilyn, Hall of Fame teacher you had?
Miss Miller, my 5th grade teacher.
Miss Miller, 5th grade.
Beachland Elementary.
That's very cool. John Dan, 11th grade English, Lyons High School. Back with your feedback next. Feedback from David, who says, Kyle, when you report on vaccine deniers, please start referring to them as pro-disease. I don't know if that is fair, David. I don't think that all vaccine deniers are pro-disease. Certainly some of them are disease curious. Ralph from Roxborough, that's a great radio call-in name if I ever saw one. Ralph in Roxborough says, great commentary on the reason why the Mike Lindell trial is flying under the radar. If nothing else, it'll give you more bizarre claims to cover. Here's the deal. We wouldn't be covering these bizarre claims if they weren't espoused by the President of the United States.